Good morning, good afternoon, and good evening, everyone. My name is Loretta Heber-Girardet, and I am the Chief of the Supporting and Monitoring Sendai Framework Implementation Branch. I would invite all of you to choose either the Spanish and Arabic language channel if you'd like to listen to today's events in those languages. Most of the world's population will be living in cities by 2050. And we know that cities are on the front lines to avoid the creation of new risk and to reduce existing risk. They are now on the forefront of managing the tremendous consequences brought about by the COVID-19 pandemic, which is the worst disaster to hit the world in the last 100 years. Now, perhaps more than ever before, it's time to join forces to help cities build resilience, not only to manage the crises of today, but also to lay the foundation for a more secure future for generations to come. And with that, I would like to share with you how today's session will unfold. The first session is the journey of resilient cities. It will be a reflection from cities and national government and national associations of municipalities on the importance of resilience building, the experiences that they have had today, the challenges, and the way forward. And the second session will be a chance to hear from the partners in the Global Partnership for Local Risk Reduction and Resilience, the MCR2030 core partners, their views on local resilience and how they will collaborate in the MCR 2030. And following these speakers, we will then officially launch MCR 2030. Thank you all very much for joining us from around the world. And with no further ado, I would like to begin by asking our first speaker to open today's session. May I please call Mr. Gino van Begen, the Secretary General of ICLE, Local Governments for Sustainability, for his opening remarks.
Thank you very much, Madam Moderator. Dear Ms. Mame Mitsutori, Your Excellencies, honorable mayors and trusted fellow core partners of the MCR 2030 campaign and initiative, dear participants of the Daring Cities 2020, ladies and gentlemen, on behalf of ICLE, I'm delighted to welcome you to the launch of the Making Cities Resilient 2030 as part of the Daring Cities Virtual Forum. As you may know, the Making Cities Resilient 2030 initiative follows the Making Cities Resilient campaign and is led by the United Nations Office of Disaster Risk Reduction. We at ICLE are proud to support this initiative as a core partner. The Daring Cities Forum is a new partnership that we organized with the City of Bonn in cooperation with the German Federal Ministries of Environment and of Cooperation and Development, as well as with the state of North Rhine-Westphalia here in Germany. Over the last 3 weeks, the Daring Cities 2020 Forum has featured more than 90 sessions with over 400 speakers and with more than 4,000 registered participants. Through the Daring Cities Forum, we aim to showcase, engage and empower urban leaders to take positive and collective action in light of the climate emergency, the Paris Agreement, and in this decade of sustainability action. As such, Daring Cities built on the 10 years of experiences of the Resilient Cities Congresses, which at that time was a response to reinstate the multilateral efforts on climate in the aftermath of Copenhagen in 2009. Those of you that have been engaged in this process for longer will remember that the first Making Cities Resilient campaign was launched at our ICLE's first Resilient Cities Congress in Bonn in 2009. I'm very happy to see that we are now witnessing a moment where both the MCR campaign and the ICLE Congress series are entering into their next phase as we move into the decade of sustainability action. Ladies and gentlemen, the year 2020 has emphasized the need for resilient cities. A year ago, nobody could have anticipated the sudden shock that the COVID-19 pandemic would bring about to all cities around the world. Although we have access to advanced scientific and technological resources and deploy strategies for disaster preparedness. And despite repeated specific warnings about the risks of pandemics, the world was not ready when this virus struck. This is indeed the worst global public health crisis in a century and exposes the fragile economic, social, and environmental underpinnings of our world today. Confronted with this crisis, cities across all continents had to step up their actions and undergo a steep learning curve to adapt to a situation which they had not planned for. At the same time, the climate crisis accelerates also in 2020. This year will become yet another warmest year on record. The Greenland ice sheet has possibly melted to a point of no return, and cities all around the world will have to fight against the effects of the climate crisis whilst responding to the pandemic. Our shared experiences of the year 2020 demonstrate that risk is systemic, that crises are of a cascading nature in the sense that they trigger further challenges which then are even more complex to address. It is therefore our hope that with the support of the MCR2030 initiative, more cities around the world will use the lessons of 2020 to better plan for what is difficult to anticipate. Since 2010, ICLEI has been supporting its 1,750 members and network cities with activities to promote local resilience, sustainable urban development, and an increased understanding of disaster risks. Over the last 10 years, numerous ICLEI members have developed good urban resilience plans to adapt their municipal infrastructure and enhance their immediate response capacities to counter the impacts of climate change, environmental and technological disasters, as well as health crises. In that respect, we very much welcome and support the Making Cities Resilient 2030 initiative. MCR 2030 is an initiative with a particular focus on more implementation to support city-to-city learning and cooperation, to support their local action plans, and the monitoring of progress in these cities. From an ICLEI perspective, we will promote the MCR 2030 as the entry point for all our ICLEI members to engage in implementing more resilience in their jurisdictions and to move to a more resilient development at urban level. I look very much forward to today's launch and deliberations. And at ICLEI, we are pleased to work with all of you over the next decade as part of this very new initiative. Thank you very much.
Well, thank you very much, Mr. Van Begen, especially for the commitment that you have shown and made to the MCR 2030 initiative. Thank you again. It is now my pleasure to introduce Ms. Mami Mitsutori, the Special Representative of the Secretary General for Disaster Risk Reduction and the Head of United Nations Office for Disaster Risk Reduction. Ms. Mitsutori, please.
Thank you very much, Lori, and thank you, Gino, for your encouraging words and for making this launch happening on the closing day of your Daring Cities 2020. Friends, colleagues from around the world, ladies and gentlemen, the decade-long Making Cities Resilient campaign concludes at the end of this year. Today, we are delighted to announce the launch of its successor, MCR 2030. 2 years of consultation with cities, governments, partners, this has culminated in a grand alliance with emphasis on moving from advocacy to implementation, very fit for the decade of action initiated by the UN Secretary General. Our goal is to ensure that cities become inclusive, safe, resilient, and sustainable by 2030, contributing directly to the achievement of the SDG 11 and other global frameworks, including the Sendai Framework for Disaster Risk Reduction, the Paris Agreement, and the New Urban Agenda. Now, whether you call yourselves daring cities, smart cities, connected cities, cultured cities, emerging cities, whatever the brand, wherever you are, in order to achieve resilience, cities will have to address the underlying connected drivers of risk, including poverty, education, health, environmental degradation, among many others. And more than anything, a holistic and systems approach to resilience must be adopted. Systemic risk requires systemic solutions. MCR 2030 aims to provide the framework for this approach. This is a co-created initiative by partners and city networks. MCR 2030 will offer cities a clear three-stage resilient roadmap to first assess, second plan, and third implement risk reduction and build your resilience. This resilience roadmap will link cities within a peer-to-peer learning environment and communities of practice supported by access to tools, technical specialists, and advisors. Recognizing that access to finance is the biggest challenge to reduce risk, MCR 2030 will provide a platform that will help cities strengthen their ability to access funds, make their procurement processes more efficient, and facilitate cities to find specialist service providers and investors for actions and initiatives. This initiative will run from January next year until the end of 2030, and building on the lessons learned during the MCR campaign, we will cover the following areas. First, to provide advisory support for improved disaster risk reduction and resilience planning, climate finance, municipal finance, and climate adaptation. Second, to improve coordination between national and local governments and national associations of local governments. And third, to forge strong partnerships for efficient implementation. If you are representing a city or a local government, MCR 2030 will be the place in the community where you can find guidance and support to enhance understanding of risk in order to create a safe, prosperous, resilient environment for your communities and your citizens. We hope that many cities and local governments will become a member of this ambitious initiative. And if you are a member of governmental, non-governmental, and civil society organizations, developing agencies, academic and research institutions, private sector entities, UN agencies, and individuals with specific knowledge and expertise, you are all encouraged to join us in the MCR 2030 as our partner, so that together we can support cities to progress along the resilience roadmap. It could be a bumpy road, but we know that we have to drive through it. We hope MCR 2030 will grow and prosper, and we look forward to working with all of you over the decade of action so that no city is left behind and nobody is left behind. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Ms. Mitsutori. It is now time to start the first session, The Journey of Resilient Cities. And it is my great honor to announce that our keynote speaker is the Prime Minister of Mongolia, His Excellency Khorasal Ukna, who will be speaking by video. And I do invite you to select English for the English interpretation. Thank you.
Нэгдсэн үндэсний байгууллагын ерөнхий нэрийн бичгийн даргын гамшигын эрсдлийг бууруулах асуудал хариуцсан тусгай төлөөлөх шатагтай Мами Мизутори дэлхийн малайлагч нараа цагуурын өөрчлөлтөөс улбаалan дэлхийд даяар тохиолж буй гамшигын тоо давтамж болон гамшигт нэрвэгдэж байгаа хүн амын тоо эрс нэмэгдэж байгаа нь бүх улсын удирдагч салбарын малайлагч нарын анхаарлын төвд байж гамшигын эрсдлийг бууруулах дөрвтэй салбар хоорондын уялдаатай арга хэмжээ авах зайлшгүй шаардлагатай байгааг бидэнд сануулж байна. Иймд гамшигын эрсдлийг бууруулах, гамшигын бэлэн байдлыг бэхжүүлэх үйл ажиллагааг хэрэгжүүлэх цогц бодлогын стратегийн үндэсний болон орон нутгийн хэмжээнд наривчлан төлөвлөх нь өндөр ач холбогдолтой болж байгаатай та бүхэн санал нийлэгдэхэд би итгэл төгс байна. Монгол Улсын засгийн газар гамшигын эрсдлийг бууруулах үндэсний болон орон нутгийн стратегийг боловсруулан хэрэгжүүлэхдээ тодорхой зарчмуудыг баримтлан ажиллаж байна. Үүнд үндэсний болон орон нутгийн түвшинд бодлого, удирдлага болон үйл ажиллагааны уялдаа холбоог бэхжүүлэх, олон нийтийн оролцоог хангаж салбар хоорондын хамтын ажиллагааг нэгтруулах, гамшигын эрсдлийг бууруулах үйл ажиллагаанд улсын болон орон нутгийн төсвийн 1%-аас доошгүй хөрөнгө оруулалтыг төвлөрүүлэх, төр хувийн хвшлийн түншлийг дэмжиж гамшигт төсвөлтэй бүтээн байгуулалтыг өрнүүлэх, нэгдсэн үндэсний байгууллагын гишүүн орнуудын баталсан гамшигын эрсдлийг бууруулах сэдвийн үйл ажиллагааны цар хүрээ баримт төвчгийн зорилтуудад нийцүүлэх зэрэг орж байна. 2017 онд манай засгийн газар гамшигын эрсдлийг бууруулах сэндэн үйл ажиллагааны цар хүрээг хэрэгжүүлэх дунд хугацааны үндэсний стратегийг баталж, Монгол улсын ерөнхий сайдаар ахлуулсан гамшигын эрсдлийг бууруулах үндэсний зөвлөлийг байгуулж, үйл ажиллагааг нь үндэсний хэмжээнд эхлүүлж, бүх аймагуудад салбар зөвлөлүүдийг байгуулан ажиллаж байна. Миний үе Монгол улсын шадар сайдаар ажиллаж байхдаа 2017 онд нэгдсэн үндэсний байгууллагын гамшигын эрсдэл төсвөртэй хотууд дэлхийн аянд манай бүх томоохон 32 хотыг нэгтгэн ажилласан. Ингэснээр 2020 онд багтаа манай улсын бүх хотуудыг гамшигын эрсдлээс урьдчилан сэргийлэх орон нутгийн стратегтэй болгож, нэгдсэн үндэсний байгууллагын гишүүн орны хувьд гамшигын эрсдлийг бууруулах сэндэн үйл ажиллагааны цар хүрээ хөтөлбөрийн зорилтыг бүрэн биелүүлсэнийг та бүхэнд дуулахад баяртай байна. Эрхэм хадагтай ноёдоо. Нэгдсэн үндэсний байгууллагын гамшиг төсвөртэй хотуудын аяны үйл ажиллагааг амжилттай хэрэгжүүлж ирсэн та бүхэнд Монгол Улсын засгийн газрын нэрийн өмнөөс болон ерөнхий сайдын хувьд баяр хүргэж байна. Уг аяныг хэрэгжүүлснээр бид гамшигын эрсдлийг бууруулах, олон нийтийн чадхыг сайжруулах, орон нутгийн удирдлагын манлайллын ач холбогдлыг дэлхийн нийтэд таниулж чадсан гэж үзэж байна. Иймд нэгдсэн үндэсний байгууллагын гамшигын эрсдлийг бууруулах газраас санаачлан өнөөдөр нээлттэй хийж буй гамшиг төсвөртэй хотууд 2030 хөтөлбөр нь бодлогын болон үйл ажиллагааны хувьд цар хүрээгээ өргөжүүлж, нэгдсэн үндэсний байгууллагын гишүүн орнуудад гамшигын эрсдлийг бууруулах сэндэн үйл ажиллагааны цар хүрээний бүх зорилтуудыг 2030 он гэхэд бүрэн биелүүлэхэд томоохон түлхэж болно гэдэгт итгэлтэй байна. 2020 оны 1-р сараас эхлэн дэлхийд даяар хурдцаагаар тархаж буй COVID-19 халдварын цар тахал бидэнд маш том анхааруулгын тохио болж хэд хэдэн сургамжийг өглөө. Гамшиг нь хүний нас, хүйс, мэрэгжил боловсроос үл хамааран улс орны хил хязгаарт баригддаггүй бөгөөд хар шуурга мэт дэлхийг нийтээр нь нэрвэж, дэлхийн болон үндэсний аюулгүй байдалд маш ноцтой аюул занхил учруулдаг тул бид гамшигын бэлэн байдал, гамшигаас хамгаалах чадхыг бүх төвшөнд бэхжүүлэх зайлшгүй шаардлагатай байна. Гамшиг нь аливаа нэгэн салбарын асуудал биш тул бүх салбар, бүх талуудын оролцоо, хамтын ажиллагааг уялдуулж тэмцэний үр дүнд сая дийлэх хүчтэй гэдгийг мэдрүүллээ. 2017 оны 5 дугаар сард Мексик улсад болсон гамшигын эрсдлийг бууруулах дэлхийн чуулганы үеэр миний бие нэгдсэн үндэсний байгууллагын гамшигын эрсдлийг бууруулах мандрайлагч түшээгийн өргөмжлийг хүлээн авахдаа дараах үхээ хэлж байснаа санаж байна. Цаг үеийн өөрчлөлт хурдцаагаар өрнөж байгаа энэ дэлхийн тогтвортой хөгжлийг хангахын тулд, ард ирдийнхээ аюулгүй байдлыг бэхжүүлэхийн тулд улс орнуудын бүх төвчний манлайлагч нар сэтгэл зүрх, хүчин чармаалтаа дайчлан цогц стратеги бодлоготойгоор ажилласнаар бид ард иргэдийнхээ өмнө хүлээсэн үүргээ биелүүлж ажиллах нь бидний хариуцлага мөн гэж хэлж байсан. Иймд гамшиг төсвөртэй хотууд 2030 хөтөлбөр эхэлж байгаа энэ цаг үед гамшигын эрсдлийг бууруулахын төлөө, гамшигаас хамгаалах бэлэн байдлаа бэхжүүлэхийн төлөө дэлхийн нийтээр хамтын хүчээр нэгтгэхийг уриалж байна. Уг хөтөлбөрийг санаачилж буй нэгдсэн үндэсний байгууллагын ерхий нэрийн бичгийн даргын тусгай төлөөлөгч хадагтай MCR2030 нэгдсэн үндэсний байгууллагын гамшигын эрсдлийг бууруулах газрын хамт олон хуралд орцож байгаа бүх хүмүүст Монгол улсын засгийн газрын нэрийн өмнөөс болон хувьяасаа өндөр амжилт хүсье өрөөё.
Shukran.
The UNDRR team and all those who are present at the launch. Thank you for your attention.
Shukran
Agradecer a
jazilan.
todos los presentes.
Well, following these inspirational words from the Prime Minister of Mongolia, a country which has done so much to implement the Sendai framework, it's now time to hear from city representatives. Our first speaker will be speaking in Spanish, and I'm very pleased to introduce Mr. Emilio
Shukran jazilan.
Leton, who's the mayor of Santa Fe, Argentina. Please, the floor is yours.
Buenos días a todos y a todas. Muchas gracias por invitarnos a participar de este encuentro. Es un gran honor compartir este panel con alcaldes de distintas partes del mundo y con representantes de organismos tan prestigiosos para pensar de qué manera podemos contribuir a un mundo mejor, más resiliente y más humano. También lo es integrar el Comité Ejecutivo Regional de la Red ICLEI, espacio que compartimos con los alcaldes de la ciudad de Recife, São Leopoldo, Sorocaba de Brasil y de Medellín, Colombia. La pandemia ratifica que en este mundo tenemos problemas que por su escala, su alcance, su naturaleza y su complejidad no podemos resolver solos. Yo hoy estoy aquí, aislado, cumpliendo un periodo de aislamiento desde mi domicilio en la ciudad de Santa Fe, Argentina. Al igual que el cambio climático, la pobreza, la inclusión social y la inseguridad son retos que debemos seguir atendiendo sin descanso. Las ciudades somos el primer nivel de respuestas a los ciudadanos, lo sabemos, lo sentimos. La mayor cercanía, afrontamos el desafío de atender problemas complejos, realidades globales, consecuencias locales y recursos muy escasos. Ello nos demuestra que es imposible actuar en soledad. En la era de la colaboración, trabajar con otros es fundamental. Participar en redes globales como ICLEI o la red de 100 ciudades resilientes es de suma importancia para conocer cómo otros han resuelto problemas similares, con qué herramientas y con qué resultados. Eso nos inspira a mejorar cada día. Aquí, en Santa Fe, Argentina, construimos diálogos con los vecinos, con las instituciones de la sociedad civil, con el sector privado y con otros niveles del Estado. No tomamos decisiones, construimos las decisiones. Lo venimos haciendo desde que asumimos y queremos profundizar ese camino con innovación y eficacia. Santa Fe está rodeada de ríos y lagunas. Esta característica de privilegio también provocó grandes tragedias en el año 2003 y 2007, con pérdida de vidas, daños materiales que afectaron la infraestructura local y también las actividades, generando una aguda crisis social y un quiebre de la confianza ciudadana en el Estado y la política. Eso hoy se está repitiendo. Sin embargo, gracias a las lecciones aprendidas como sociedad y como gobiernos, logramos ser referencias en gestión de riesgos de desastres, resiliencias urbanas y adaptación al cambio climático. La gestión de riesgo es hoy para nosotros una política central y vamos a seguir atentos a ella. Pero tenemos otros problemas. La escasez de agua, las altas temperaturas, las acciones humanas están produciendo el incendio de humedales que nos rodean, generando una pérdida de la biodiversidad de magnitudes inimaginables. Creemos que es fundamental adelantarnos a los problemas y preparar el Estado. Nuestra agenda de gobierno prioriza las políticas sociales, el cuidado y la integración urbana sociourbana. También nuestro ecosistema económico, productivo e innovador y las condiciones de convivencia urbana que son esenciales. Eso lo hace sostenible, con un Estado abierto y activo. Ser una Santa Fe mejor, resiliente y de futuro es pensar en las mejores estrategias para riesgos, problemas y oportunidades con mirada integradora. Momento justo para intentar responder entre todos una gran pregunta, mis amigos del mundo. La pregunta es, ¿cómo mejoramos la condición humana de la vida en las ciudades? Ese es nuestro desafío. Muchas gracias.
Thank you very much, Mr. Yatom, for sharing the experiences of Santa Fe, but also for really pointing out the importance of collaboration and partnership in building resilience in cities. I would now like to remind participants to turn off the English channel and return to the main audio room for the remaining sessions. All of our remaining sessions will be in English. It's now time to hear from the African continent, and I'm happy to introduce Mr. Mourad Diégaye, who's the Secretary General of the City of Dakar in Senegal. Please, the floor is yours.
Thank you very much. Good afternoon, everybody. Bonjour. I'd like first to send greetings from the Mayor of Dakar, Madam Soham El Wadini, and the whole team of the municipality, and also thanks the team from MCR and the UN Habitat for inviting us to join this session and share our experience here in Dakar for building resilience. Just to go in the team, I would like to say that here in Dakar, we start our journey on resilience by joining the network, the 100 Cities Resilient Network, back to 2019-18. And then with that experience, we had the opportunity to build a document that was the City of Dakar Resilience Strategy. And that was very important because this experience gave us the opportunity to raise awareness on risk reduction and urban resilience in the city. But to understand for the city of Dakar, it's important to give you the context. Dakar is the capital city of Senegal, the Republic of Senegal, and is also an administrative, economic, and technological pool, which have a great extension on the West African region in terms of population, in terms of migration. And this creates a lot of challenges for the city. And Dakar city is also, to represent it, it's only 0.28% of the national territory, and having 25% of the population, around 3.5 million people, and also 80% of the economical activities. That you can understand, this create great challenges on the city and put pressure on the city. Sort of issues we have, it's an inadequate public space and facilities that also create effect on climate change and urban pollution. We have these issues of migration, internal migration from people coming from the rural areas, and also national and international migration from people coming from other countries of the region. And also we have inside the city an archaic occupation of space, urban congestion that affect life of citizens and create insecurity and also create financial burden for the city. So you can understand that these are great challenges for the city. But in our journey for resilience, we took several initiatives, and we get also involved in partnership and in network, which is very important to build a resilient strategy with partnering and networking. So as I mentioned, we was part of this initiative, 100 Cities Resilience Network. We part of C4D network also, the Mayo Convention on Climate Change, and we're working with NGOs, national government, and most important, the communities, local communities. But our main program experience came from the CRPP, which is the program, the city region program of UN Habitat in Barcelona. We work with that unit to build resilient strategies and to use the tools from CRPP, which help us to go through the process. As you may know, building resilience is a process. So we get engaged into the process with stakeholders, with communities, with partners, and also with sister cities. And going through this process, we come up to identify a main action for resilience. And we address especially 3 priorities on actioning on that. First is working on public space congestion. Dakar is very, very, very polluted and have congestion issues. So we're working first on these issues. And so we identified technological and industrial risk that we should address in our city. And last but very important for us is social vulnerabilities. As you may know, we have some issues of poverty, urban poverty in our city, and social vulnerabilities that we should address on that. So going through this process on building resilience, we should mention that as a result, what was very important as a first result for Dakar is now we can say that in Dakar we have a high level of maturity for risk understanding and risk reduction. So this is very, very first, it's important for cities to tackle and to have these things. Second, we do now have also information and action and engagement for technological reduction and also risk mitigation. And second is, for us is we get a very high engagement from political and technological side. First, the mayor, she's very involved on what we are doing. The municipal council very involved, and also we get all the communities engaged on what we are doing in building resilience as a process. And we also have, as a result, the opportunity also now to share our experience with network, with partners, and actually with the experience of the CRPP, we are building partnership with the city of Barcelona in working on action that we already identified. And last, it's very important in our process, we now have the power to influence the national levels really, and also helping on going up on issues related to risk reduction and also to building resilience. That's clearly what we have done through this process. And now we can say that Dakar is very positioned on working on building resilience and also on working on risk reduction. So it's very important for us to say that we're really engaged and we're looking forward to joining the MCR 2030 launch teams and also to work with partners, with cities, with communities on building resilient cities for us. Thank you very much for your attention.
Well, thank you very much. Although you articulated many challenges that Dakar is facing, it's incredibly exciting to hear the steps that you've taken so far to address resilience in your city and that you're ready to share these experiences with other partners. So we're really looking forward to learning more about the activities underway in Dakar. Thank you. I would now like to turn to Ms. Catherine Oldham, who's the Chief Resilience Officer from the Greater Manchester Combined Authority in the United Kingdom. Please.
Thank you very much. Good afternoon from Greater Manchester, and thank you for inviting us to share some reflections on our involvement to date in the Making Cities Resilient campaign. We joined as a role model city in 2014, interested in learning from others, in sharing our own experiences and strengthening our resilience. And in looking back at our journey over the past 6 years, I'd like to highlight 3 themes in particular in which membership of the campaign has been key. The first of these is putting resilience as a strategic priority. This is about where resilience and the reduction of disaster risk sits within the city's priorities. And when we joined the campaign, the local political support and the international acknowledgement of our work boosted the visibility of this agenda within the city. Early on, we also completed the Disaster Resilience Scorecard, one of the tools freely available to cities through the campaign. And this led us to improve our governance mechanisms, broadened the range of stakeholders engaged in resilience, and so further enhanced the recognition of disaster risk reduction as a city priority. So we've been able to make use of the Making Cities Resilient campaign as a springboard to enable systems in the city to come together in thinking and planning around disaster resilience. And when COVID struck, this meant that we were able to quickly bring together the whole city system to develop a cross-sector response to this disaster. But turning to a second theme, I'd like to touch on building international partnerships. Working with other cities within the campaign has enabled us to be part of projects to develop and pilot new approaches. For example, we had the privilege of working with other role model cities to develop the first city-to-city disaster resilience peer review tool that allows cities to evaluate their own resilience to disasters and recognise and build on existing good practice. Through work such as this, we've had the opportunity to exchange knowledge with many cities across the world. And I'd like to take this opportunity to thank every city in the campaign that has been so generous in sharing ideas and experience with us. And just to mention a few, they include Amadora and Lisbon in Portugal, Arvika and Jönköping in Sweden, together with Viggiano and Potenza in Italy. And we've also had the pleasure of entering into a memorandum of understanding with the city of Ulsan in South Korea, which has not only fostered knowledge exchange, but has also enabled practical support in the ongoing COVID pandemic. And finally, the third theme that I'll draw from our experience of the campaign is that of city-led innovation. As one example, we took some ideas from award-winning work that the city of Amadora had undertaken about raising awareness of disaster risk. And this enabled us to commission research into the very different experiences of disasters that older people in our city report, and to identify the lessons they would like to share with others. And these were then incorporated into an intergenerational programme in our schools, promoting an inclusive approach to disaster risk reduction. And this work in turn informed a commitment we made through the UNDRR's Sendai Voluntary Commitment Programme. So the three themes of ensuring resilience is a strategic priority, working in partnership with other cities across the world, and city-led innovation in new approaches to disaster risk reduction have been at the heart of our experience of being a member of the Making Cities Resilient campaign. As the world continues to face disasters and responds to the COVID pandemic, the case for the campaign couldn't be any stronger. Through its continuation, we look forward to working with cities around the world and are excited to enter the next phase of this globally important journey. Thank you very much.
Thank you. And may I just say how gratifying it is to hear that the work that was carried out during the MCR campaign, which is the predecessor to the Making Cities Resilient 2030, helped serve you, Manchester, during the COVID crisis. It was a springboard, as you say, and that it also really was an opportunity to exchange lessons with other cities. And we know that this is very much a feature of the new initiative as well. So thank you for sharing those experiences with us. It is now time to hear from two speakers, both from Dubai. The first is Mohammed Jajuli from the Executive Council of Dubai, followed by Samira Mohammed Al-Rais, also from the Executive Council of Dubai. We'll start with Mohammed Jajuli, please.
Good evening from Dubai, and thank you for inviting us to share Dubai's experience on resilience in this esteemed event. Thank you. So I'll start by emphasizing that resilience has always been key for Dubai. Throughout its journey, Dubai has managed to overcome global and regional shocks by adopting an agile and resilient strategy on economic, social, and urban fronts. In the past 2 decades, Dubai has diversified its economy away from depending on oil as the main driver for growth. Today, Dubai is a highly connected city and a global hub for inflows of goods, investments, and talents from all over the world, which makes it even more vulnerable to global shocks. And hence, resilience will always be key for Dubai's progress and sustainability. So what is Dubai doing currently or today with regards to resilience? We are going to highlight 4 main initiatives in this regard. The first is Dubai Plan 2021. In late 2014, Dubai launched its Dubai Plan 2021, a 6-theme citywide strategy with social, economic, and urban goals the city aspires to achieve by the year 2021, with resilience embedded in policies developed across all 6 themes, including Urban Plan 2040, Integrated Water Strategy, and Climate Adaptation Strategy. The second initiative is ISO 37123 for resilient cities. Dubai has partnered with the World Council on City Data to adopt the ISO 37123 and became among the early adopters of the standard. The standard helps cities have visibility and prepare for potential shocks that could affect their people, economy, and urban environment. In the same context, Dubai has partnered with the WCCD to create the Dubai WCCD local data hub for the Middle East, North Africa, and South Asia. Through the hub, Dubai seeks to bring together the region's cities to discuss topics and challenges related to sustainability and resilience based on standardized comparable data across the cities of the region. Samira?
Thank you, Mohammed. In addition to what mentioned by Mohammed, Dubai joined C40 in 2015, along with fellow cities that take actions to increase resilience to climate risk. Today, 200 cities across the globe are taking the lead on climate adaptation, protecting more than 400 million people from the effects of climate change and creating resilience places to live and work. In response to Paris Agreement, Dubai has developed a climate change adaptation strategy, which is yet another step towards aligning and enhancing the adaptation measures undertaken. In addition to that, and under the leadership of Dubai Police, Dubai has partnered with the UNDRR and developed a medium-term resilience strategy 2020-2030. The strategy adopts a comprehensive approach to resilience across different sectors and organizations of public, private, and third sectors to ensure the sustainability and quality of services provided to both public and private sector and protect quality of life. The strategy has a vision of ensuring that Dubai remains resilient, safe, smart, and sustainable. This is to be achieved through 5 strategic goals. First, understand and manage risk. Second, plan, organize, and coordinate effects. Third, innovative use of skills and techniques. Fourth, promote resilience and empower and support individuals and organizations. And finally, ensure community safety, welfare, and quality of life. Thank you for your time and thank you for your attention.
Thank you both for sharing the goals and the objectives that you have laid out for yourselves in Dubai. But I'd also like to take a moment and thank you for the work around the data hub. We all know how important data is in helping to design programs to achieve resilience. So really want to take a moment and thank you for that work and to continue the good work you're doing in your strategies. It's now time to hear from the National Association of Municipalities. And I'm very pleased to invite Mr. Jamal Bash, who's the councillor of the Kishore municipality and representative of the Union of Turkish Municipalities, to take the floor. Thank you.
Thank you very much. I hope you can all hear me well. This is Jamal from Ankara, the Union of Turkish Municipalities. And the Union of Turkish Municipalities also vice chairs the Territorial Prevention and Management of Crisis Task Force of the UCLG. In the UCLG network, we also have the UCLG Learning, which is an organization that works under UCLG umbrella to exchange information and sort of disseminate the learning among all the local authorities across the world. In that network, we also created, with the participation and support from the UNDRR, we also created a learning module on resilient cities. In this learning module, we have a specific chapter that is dedicated on the role of local and national associations of local authorities and how they can involve in learning and also disseminating, but also localization of the international agendas. So for my personal view, the local authority associations at national level are the key partners to localize the international agenda at local level. They are also the translators, the communicators of the global level and bringing that information at the local level. So what we need to do as local government associations is to sort of, we've been doing that on the SDGs a lot, but we slightly missed the Sendai framework, localization of the Sendai framework. We focused so much on the SDGs, which was something we had to do. But now with the COVID, we also realized the Sendai framework was very much important. And now we need to work on localization of that. One last remark from the LGA perspective is that the LGAs are not as functional as it is all across the world. In some of the parts of the world, they are all the contact points for national associations, they're the contact point for local authorities, they're the contact point for national or international donors. But in some of the regions across the world, LGAs do not exist or they are not functional. So what we also need to do is to support development of capacities of those LGAs if they have a low capacity, or we should support national governments to create LGAs if there is none. So thank you very much for this opportunity. Thank you.
Thank you very much. And I think we all agree localization of the Sendai framework is absolutely critical. But at the same time, we know localization of SDGs, we will not achieve the SDGs unless we focus more on risk reduction. So the two really go hand in hand. And the role that you point out is absolutely critical in achieving that. So thank you. We have now reached the first part of our session in which we have heard from our government and municipal speakers. And I think it was really exciting to hear about what's already happening in the cities, but also the real commitment that you're all bringing to partnership and to working together to achieve resilience. So thank you all very much for your contributions. It's now time to turn to the second session, which is MCR 2030, a global partnership for local risk reduction and resilience. And now we will be hearing from the partners who will be speaking about what they are bringing to this coalition and their vision for the future. It's my pleasure to invite Sami Waba, who's the Global Director for the World Bank's Urban Disaster Risk Management, Resilience and Land Global Practice from the World Bank Group in Washington, D.C. to start off the session, please.
Thank you very much. Ladies and gentlemen, it's a pleasure for us to be here, and we're delighted to join the Making Cities Resilience 2030 campaign, coordinated and led by UNDRR, and I'd like to thank Mami Mizutori for the invite. At the World Bank, city resilience is at the core of our mission to eradicate extreme poverty and boost shared prosperity. We know that if we do nothing about the impacts of climate change, 100 million people will fall into poverty by 2030. And of these, we estimate 77 million people in urban areas. And COVID-19 has laid bare the inequalities within our cities and reminded us that without investing in disaster risk management, in disaster risk reduction, cities are exposed to increasing shocks and stresses. And some of these hazards, whether they're natural, geological, or biological, can turn into disasters that can wash away in seconds, decades of development progress. So we need to scale up investment in city emergency response and preparedness capacity, as well as risk reduction and improved coordination. This is why we prioritize, scaling up city resilience and urban resilience at the World Bank. So following our Habitat 3 report on scaling urban resilience, we set up in 2017 a global program called the City Resilience Program, CRP. It's through a partnership between our Urban Disaster Risk Management, Resilience and Land Global Practice and the Global Facility for Disaster Reduction and Recovery, GFDRR. We have 3 tracks in the program: planning for resilience, financing for resilience, and partnerships for resilience. The program aims to mainstream resilience in planning by enabling the development of risk-informed land use plan and spatial development plans, and ensuring risk data is integral to planning processes. And we've developed a tool called the City Scan over here. The program also aims to scale up access to finance by attracting private investment in resilient urban infrastructure. We use credit enhancement, we use guarantees, including in a partnership with the Spanish government, ICID, and the European Commission through a program called RESIDE for Resilient City Development that has mobilized 100 million euros in guarantees from the EU to de-risk private investment in urban infrastructure, resilient urban infrastructure, and with a focus on Africa. And we're also coordinating donors and mobilizing concessional funding and also improvements in public finances. So on average, we invest 5 to 7 billion in urban development and resilience operations. And to date, under the CRP, we've supported 105 cities from over 50 countries, which includes 30 cities that are receiving financial advisory support for this additional mobilization of private investment. And we've carried out and delivered 55 city scans and 4 resilient investment planning workshops. So we're committed to coordinate our efforts with MCR cities and with the development partners, including UNDRR, the Global Resilient Cities Network, IFIs, including JICA, ICID, the European Commission, Habitat, UCLG, and ICLEI, to name just a few, to share our knowledge and expertise in planning and in finance, and to help contribute to these ambitious, but ever more important and more timely campaign. The road might be bumpy, like Mami said, but through partnership and coordination across stakeholders and sectors, we will help make cities more resilient to help achieve the Sustainable Development Goals and our twin goals. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. And we're so pleased to have the World Bank as a partner. The work that you carry out in helping cities access financing is so critical to this agenda. So thank you very much. I would now like to ask Patricia McCarney, who's the President and CEO of the World Council on City Data, to take the floor from Toronto, Canada, please.
Thank you very much, Loretta, and thank you to all for welcoming us here today. It's so wonderful to be part of this incredible launch of the MCR 2030. MCR 2030 is a truly bold, ambitious, and globally collaborative step forward for all of us, equipping cities with precisely the kinds of tools they need to embrace city resilience and building back better at a time when it couldn't be more critical. I would like to particularly thank Mami Mizutori and the entire UNDRR team for bringing together this global group and its united call to action around city resilience, the likes of which is not only extremely relevant and necessary, but also unprecedented. While city resilience has been a topic of ongoing discussion for cities, global organizations, and city networks for many, many years, this topic has never before crystallized in such an all-encompassing way as through the COVID-19 crisis that we all face today. Every city on every continent is now being confronted with a common challenge. All cities and all global citizens are indeed in this together. Though it comes in the form of a health crisis, in cities, the impact of COVID-19 touches everything from the economy to the environment, to the delivery of city services. And in fact, as a planner, I must say, in the way we build and rebuild our cities into the future. For the WCCD, World Council on City Data, standardized, globally comparable, and independently verified city data is now more important than ever. It's indeed the critical starting point in building more resilient cities. We believe that. That is our mandate here at the WCCD. This global system of data for cities that we have developed at the WCCD is now the pivotal point in our partnership with UNDRR and is the basis for our contribution herewith going forward to MCR 2030. The WCCD first began its work in 2014, having developed the first ever standard for city data, ISO 37120. We're now working with 100 cities and we work in 35 countries, annually reporting city to the WCCD platform and embracing this data in a way that's driving transformative change in communities and cities of all sizes across all regions, regardless of income and size and distribution of population. We are moving forward with this 35 countries, and as mentioned by Mohammed Jajuli from Dubai, the local data hubs that we established in the Middle East, we truly look forward to replicating in Africa and Asia and Latin America going forward. And we look forward to working with all the core partners here, as well as all of the stakeholders listening today. This is truly a remarkable path forward as a road, as Mami has mentioned. So I want to say that, underline that through all of this work in building these ISO standards, UNDRR has been beside us every step of the way, helping to bring awareness to this vital work and expand our network of cities and partners. Indeed, UNDRR devoted time and energy to attend the ISO meetings, the International Standards for Organization meetings, over the last several years to support the development of the latest ISO standard for city data, ISO 37123, which is a set of critical indicators to guide cities in becoming more resilient. In partnership with UNDRR, the WCCD is now commencing a new phase of work to support MCR 2030, rolling out ISO 37123 to cities worldwide to help equip them with a set of high caliber, globally standardized and independently verified city data to the resilience agenda. The data-driven work, this data-driven work is the WCCD's core contribution to the MCR 2030. We see our work in building ISO high caliber city level data as instrumental to the resilience roadmap for cities that MCR 2030 is now starting to travel, in defining commitments on how to improve local resilience. With cities like Dubai already working towards WCCD certification under this newest standard, we're looking forward to our partnership with MCR2030 partners working to help create fully quantitative data sets that can inform both preparedness and planning for more resilient cities across the world. More importantly, ISO 37123 will empower cities to respond to uniquely local challenges while also responding to the global crisis such as COVID-19. To that end, we call on all partners to help contribute to this critical work and specifically to help support cities in Africa, Asia, and Latin America, leaving no one behind, no city behind, no citizen. From funding to awareness to capacity building, there's a tremendous gap to fill, and we look forward to working with all partners to drive this crucial work forward. In closing, thank you to all of our colleagues at UNDRR, to our city partners, and thanks to all of you listening today, the global stakeholders. We here at the WCCD look forward to working with you all on our shared global goal of harnessing the potential of sustainable urbanization and as a core partner in MCR 2030, turning urban risk into an opportunity to make our cities stronger and more resilient into the future. Thank you very much.
Thank you. You clearly articulated why this initiative is so important right now in the face of COVID, but really you drove home the message that data is so much at the heart of everything that we do, and the real need for collaboration around data, especially for those cities that may be struggling at this point to access the data that they need to drive their decision making. So we're really looking forward to your collaboration in this initiative. Thank you again. It's now my pleasure to announce that we will have a pre-recorded video statement from Ms. Mamuna Mohammed Sharif, who's the Executive Director of UN Habitat, based in Nairobi, Kenya.
Dear Mami Mizutori, Special Representative of the Secretary General for Disaster Risk Reduction and Head of UNDRR. Friends, colleagues, ladies and gentlemen, a very good afternoon to all of you. The UN Secretary General launched his policy brief on COVID-19 in an urban world, focusing on 3 areas. Number 1, how to tackle inequalities and development gaps in cities. Number 2, how to strengthen capacities of local governments. And number 3, working towards recovery that is green, inclusive, and resilient. COVID-19 and the ongoing recovery work requires us to think creatively and innovatively. Our work on the Making Cities Resilient 2030 is very timely as we need to build back better and greener. UN Habitat has recently published our 2020 Catalogue of Services to help cities in the recovery process and make our cities resilient to pandemics. COVID-19 is a symptom of the larger climate emergency, which continues to test the limits of our cities and human settlements. We have to be resilient to dramatic climate change events. By this, I mean we need to be brave and take decisive action to meet global urban challenges and design resilient cities that could successfully deal with inequality, inadequate housing, or lack of basic services. In this decade of action, Making Cities Resilient 2030 is the platform for all of us to succeed in delivering inclusive, safe, resilient, and sustainable cities by 2030. It is a great opportunity for us to work together to share experience and challenges. As you all know, resilience is part of the UN Habitat Strategic Plan 2020 to 2023. The UN Habitat City Resilient Global Program is supporting local governments in the process of identifying concrete action of resilience. UN Habitat looks forward to working with you to take into account a multi-hazard, multi-stakeholder, and multi-sectoral approach. Complex urban systems require that we work together to improve the resilience of cities. I'm glad that this event, which coincides with ICLE's Daring Cities 2020 program, is also taking place in Urban October. UN Habitat and UNDRR will continue to forge partnership to make our cities more resilient by 2030. I look forward to working together with you towards an action-oriented agenda over the next 10 years. Thank you.
May I use this occasion to thank our colleagues at our UN sister agency, UN Habitat, for their ongoing collaboration on urban resilience, and to say how much we look forward to continuing our collaboration throughout MCR 2030. It's now time to ask Ms. Lauren Sorkin, who's the Executive Director of Resilient Cities Network in Singapore, to take the floor. Thank you.
Thank you so much, and good morning and good afternoon and good evening to everyone. I'm Lauren Sorkin. I'm the Executive Director of Resilient Cities Network, and we're also known as Our Cities. I'm so pleased to be here for this official launch of Making Cities Resilient 2030, a reinvigorated campaign for our city development partners and all of you, our city stakeholders around the world, as we work to accelerate resilience building at the local level. Our Cities is thrilled to be a partner in this effort. As we know very well from our own network of 97 cities around the globe, when cities have tools to lead, it results in safer, more equitable futures for everyone. Our Cities is the world's leading urban resilience network, and we are city-led, impact-focused, regionally driven, and partnership-based. And we are so happy to be working with city partners and the core partners of MCR 2030 to co-create solutions that address complex and interrelated urban challenges. The COVID-19 crisis has made it absolutely impossible to ignore, as so many have noted tonight, that you are facing in each and every one of your cities unprecedented challenges that are at the nexus of urbanization, globalization, climate change, and rapid technological advancements. Cities are indeed on the front line and uniquely positioned to confront these connected issues. We must continue to work together now to improve lives everywhere, especially those of the most vulnerable. As MCR 2030 points out, the way cities are built can either contribute or cause more impacts of the climate emergency. As social, economic, and cultural hubs, we need to ensure that our cities are creating more resilience and avoiding new risks. We are here as Our Cities because we agree that urban resilience and disaster risk reduction together are that new way of working. When a city is able to step back and holistically connect its multitude of needs to its plans, it has the potential to strengthen not just one, but every investment and program, from road building to pandemic response, to build back better, better prepared for the future. The Resilient Cities Network partners with cities to support them in developing solutions. We aim to support projects on the ground that support multiple needs, including those that benefit the most vulnerable and have the biggest impact. Resilience work requires tremendous innovation on the part of cities. You have to rethink who you are as a city and adapt how you view connections and interdependencies. We know this work intimately, and we are looking forward to continuing to advance it among the many partner cities in our network and more. We have spent the past year listening to our network of over 200 cities tell us what they need. We've reviewed over 4,000 projects, and we have identified those can deliver most benefits. And our partners play a critical role in helping us to scale this impact. It is in this spirit of partnership that today we are actively committing to keep working as part of the Global Coordinating Committee and the regional committees of MCR 2030. We look forward to sharing more strategic insights and lessons with cities around the world and engaging with the other core partners to ensure the success of MCR 2030. We already actively share knowledge with MCR 2030 members by inviting all of you to frequent our Cities on the Frontline speaker series that we co-organize with the World Bank, and by participating in training workshops and online knowledge sharing platforms. And we are looking forward to keeping these platforms opening and welcoming many more of you to join them in the coming days, months, and years. As part of our overall commitment to collaboration, tomorrow, our Cities is also launching a brand new partnership with the National League of Cities. Our partnership with the National League of Cities will enable 20,000 small and mid-sized cities in the US that have not yet developed resilience strategies to access technical assistance and expertise from CROs around the world, our chief resilience officers that have developed those solutions. This effort will accelerate city responses to both existing chronic stresses such as inequality and aging infrastructure, and future acute shocks such as flooding and extreme heat. In conclusion, as we continue to deal with the COVID-19 pandemic and the associated crises, I would echo the thoughts of so many here. Cities, we now have a chance to reinvent ourselves, to create more livable, safe, and equitable, resilient places. We at our Cities know that you cannot do this alone. We are looking forward to working within the MCR with the hundreds of experts and practitioners here to solve complex problems. We look forward to the next steps of the MCR 2030. We wish all of the core partners, and especially those from UNDRR, a hearty congratulations on this moment. We look forward to continuing next steps together.
Thank you. Thank you very much for sharing your news from our cities. It's so good to know how networks are working together to share information, but you raised that critically important issue of innovation and how do we ensure that innovation is shared between cities. So thank you very much. We appreciated your comments. I'd now like to turn to Tiziana Bonzan, who's the Manager for Climate, Migration and Resilience from the International Federation of Red Cross and Red Crescent Societies here in Geneva, Switzerland. Tiziana.
Thank you so much. I hope you can hear me well, and warm greetings to all from a very sunny Geneva. So allow me first of all to, of course, thank the UNDRR for inviting us to this distinguished panel. And indeed, on behalf of the International Federation of Red Cross and Red Crescent Societies, I would also like to congratulate the UNDRR on the official launch of this important initiative, the MCR 2030. It certainly heartens us to see this continuous journey for urban resilience that will bring together many inclusive, safe, resilient, and sustainable cities. As we've already heard from a number of speakers, the unprecedented and rapid urbanizations requires that we come together to redouble our efforts to address this global challenge. And as we already heard from others, acting alone is not an answer, and only through our collective efforts, we will be able to make cities the source of solutions to rather than the cause of the challenges that our world is facing today. For the past 10 years, the MCR has played a key role in raising awareness of disaster risk reduction and resilience among cities and deliver, of course, the same framework at the local level. However, we believe that much more remains to be done to address the range and complexity of urban issues. And we see, of course, in this new MCR 2030, a wonderful opportunity to strengthen the global partnership for urban risk reduction and resilience, and really moving from advocacy and awareness raising to much more implementation and action on the ground. As one of the core partners of the MCR 2030, the IFRC commits to support its implementation in accordance with our mandate, and a newly adopted strategy that we call the Strategy 2030, adopted by the Red Cross and Red Crescent National Societies and IFRC for the next decade, that will focus increasingly on the humanitarian challenges caused by the climate crisis, but also by migration and displacement, and what we like to call evolving crises and disasters, because of course the nature of those is changing. We bring into this partnership the world's largest humanitarian network that can reach 150 million people in 192 countries through the work of 12 million active volunteers that are deployed by our Red Cross and Red Crescent national societies around the world. It is really through their permanent presence, but also to the fact that they have an auxiliary role to their authorities in the humanitarian field, of course, that we would like to see this work happening through the work of the branches and the volunteers in pretty much every city in the world. And therefore, we see this as an important contribution to continue to support people and communities before, during, and after shocks and hazards in emergency, but also in non-emergency context, and really actively engaging at a local actors for urban DRR and resilience. Additionally, allow me to also bring maybe a dimension that has been brought up by some of the speakers, particularly from Dakar. We see urban resilience is increasingly connected to human mobility dynamics, and as such, increasingly challenged by the shortcomings that we see in addressing displacement in urban settings. We know that these shortcomings are often attributed to the rigidity of planning and funding schemes, as well as to the scale and complexity of urban environments, because this can be challenging due to the fact that there are multiple stakeholders we need to deal with. We believe, however, the funding mechanisms that can be put in place in a more flexible way. They can be made available through multi-year and in a way that they support area-based approaches, meaning multi-sectoral, multiple stakeholders involved, and really looking at the whole population as they are affected by disasters and crises. This is the only way, we believe, to promote truly self-reliance and achieve successful outcomes to situations of hardship and vulnerability we are confronted with in urban context. So to conclude, and more specifically, the IFRC is excited to continue to contribute to this global partnership, and we will be engaging at 3 levels. First of all, at the local level, of course, because this is where we have a national Red Cross and Red Crescent societies. We are part of the communities. We will engage by bringing our strengths and expertise through a holistic approach. We heard it before. Disaster and risk is systemic, and therefore it requires a holistic response to it. We will look at bringing livelihoods, health, shelter, social cohesion considerations into our responses. But we will also engage at the regional level, and we'll use, of course, the opportunities to contribute to the regional coordination committees and to the consultations and the work that will happen at the regional level. And finally, at a global level, we will actively contribute to the Global Coordination Committee and continue to disseminate the MCR through our own networks and strengthening the collaboration and partnerships with all the organizations who are supporting this initiative. So I'd just like to say that we do look forward to this close collaboration in our collective journey for urban resilience. Thank you.
Thank you very much. I just want to say that the mention several times of human mobility and displacement and the challenges that cities are facing with this. I do hope that this MCR2030 initiative serves as a platform to share lessons between cities, because it certainly is a challenge that we're seeing growing throughout all of the regions, and several of you have mentioned it. I also just wanted to really thank the IFRC. By having you a part of this initiative, we're able to reach into the heart, into the core of cities through your volunteer network. And this is so much, I think, an important element to really help build resilience when you're at the community level and working with communities. So thank you very much for that. It's now time to turn to Mr. Kozo Nagami, who is the Deputy Director General and Group Director for Disaster Risk Reduction Group, Global Environment Department, from JICA, the Japan International Cooperation Agency, speaking from Tokyo, Japan. Please.
Thank you so much. This is a great opportunity for JICA to be part of this very precious event. And congratulations for all of the UNDRR colleagues, friends, and in particular, Ms. Dori-san. And we are very much glad to be part of this session. And from JICA, I'd like to express our great importance on the DRR investments. And the JICA contributes to the world's sustainable development based on Japan's experience and knowledge. Our cooperation schemes include technical cooperation programs to support capacity development in planning, policy making, and project technical designing, and financial assistance as well in grant or loan for implementation of projects and policies. Japan, as you know, has tackled a variety of natural hazards such as flood, typhoon, sediment disaster, earthquake, tsunami, and volcano eruption. The government's strong commitment toward disaster risk reduction has played a vital role in Japan's development until now to attain a high economic growth and social development against this hardship of natural hazards. To illustrate, Japanese government shared a considerable amount of budget to disaster risk reduction for last 7 decades, and Japan has significantly reduced disaster risk. Therefore, the Japanese government and JICA took the initiatives to formulate the Sendai framework for DRR that clearly states the importance of ex-ante investment in disaster risk reduction. The importance of DRR efforts against natural hazards never changes even with the COVID spread. Biological hazard risks are multiplied with the natural hazards such as floods, storms, and earthquakes, and vice versa. And climate risks are adding year by year all over the world, including Japan. We should never stop to materialize our DRR investment efforts with wisely prioritizing the most fundamental risk elements. Regarding the SFDRR, achievement of the global target A to D to substantially reduce human and economic damage is particularly crucial for this decade. Again, the ex-ante DRR investment is the key to attain these targets. DRR investment is not a cost, but an upfront investment for the sustainable growth of the national and regional economies. Therefore, we put the highest importance on the implementation of DRR investment projects to secure the disaster risk reduction. As a first step, we support central and local governments to formulate DRR strategies and holistic plans. We would like to continue our contribution with the technical cooperation projects and training programs to support the DRR strategy and plan formulation. We have such projects in Nepal, Bangladesh, Sri Lanka, and so forth. Targeted cities under those projects should also be involved in the MCR 2030 as well. Strategies and plans cannot actually reduce disaster risks without implementation. Therefore, the second step, our financial assistance in grant or loan can be applied to the real implementation of the DRR investment plans. We support countries to formulate river basin flood control master plan and design of structures and provide financial assistance to implement it. Likewise, we support countries and cities to formulate urban resilience plan to make critical infrastructure earthquake resistant and provide financial assistance to implement it. The implementation stage needs reliable and experienced engineering and constructing works and services. JICA would like to mobilize private sectors that can surely materialize the high-quality implementation of the projects. As a token of our commitment, we would like to announce that we have achieved the Sendai initiatives to train more than 40,000 disaster management personnel and provided financial support in the amount of $4 billion during the 4 years from 2015 to 2018, and plans to continue the same sender initiative to likewise in the same way from 2019 onwards. We wish MCR2030 will be the global platform to accelerate and catalyze the global efforts to effectively, efficiently, and dynamically reduce the disaster risk with enhancing the resilience of participating cities. JICA, as a bilateral donor agency, would like to exhibit the good practices together with our cooperation counterparts. JICA is ready to support the world's Build Back Better for sure. Thank you very much.
Thank you for sharing some of JICA's accomplishments. And I know from my own personal experience that Japan just has a wealth of knowledge and know-how when it comes to preventing and managing disaster risks. And I'm so glad that you'll be contributing as a core partner to MCR 2030, because this is a platform for you to expand on this work. So thank you very much. I'd now like to turn to Mr. Steve Krosky, who's the Deputy Director of Infrastructure and the Project Management Group for the United Nations Office for Project Services, UNOPS, in Copenhagen, Denmark. Please.
Great, thank you very much for that introduction, and great to be here with all the partners, and great to see so many participants here today. As the UN agency with a mandate in infrastructure and a wealth of experience in implementing projects in some of the most challenging contexts, UNOPS is proud to be part of the MCR 2030 and supporting our partners in building the resilience of their urban infrastructure systems to withstand the shocks and stresses that threaten our future. Too many times our infrastructure systems are unprepared for dealing with these increasing shocks, and hard-won development gains can be lost overnight, literally. Infrastructure systems provide the framework that allows cities to flourish and provide the necessary services that citizens depend on. They're intended to have a long life and generally have high cost to construct and operate. Unfortunately, there are too many examples these days where the infrastructure is not able to withstand the shocks and stresses increasingly seen across the globe. As an example, it's estimated around $18 billion a year in low and middle income countries is lost due to the failure of energy and transport infrastructure alone annually. Few cities and governments can afford these losses. As shock events are expected to become more frequent and severe in the future, it necessitates the mainstreaming of resilience into infrastructure decision-making in order to protect development gains and human lives. One of the biggest challenges we hear from our partners is the lack of available information on infrastructure systems and the consequences of hazards that they face, so that urban stakeholders can make risk-informed, evidence-based decisions to improve resilience and ensure key service delivery. Without this information, it's impossible to identify critical and vulnerable assets or run scenarios to identify weaknesses within infrastructure systems. This type of information and approach is essential for being able to create an evidence-based approach for improving urban resilience and protecting our societies. Therefore, in order to support national and urban governments improve infrastructure resilience, UNOPS has developed an evidence-based infrastructure approach that entails collecting and analysing information on the built, enabling and natural environments to support risk-informed decision-making to help protect our societies from catastrophes. This thus supporting the objectives outlined by the MCR 2030. UNOPS is putting its approach to practice, which I think is what we're hearing a lot. Where's the action? We're working in Gambia, for instance, supporting the Greater Banjul 2040 initiative. And that includes an assessment of the enabling environment and building of government capacity to plan, deliver and manage more risk-informed and resilient infrastructure systems. In Dar es Salaam, we're working with the government and our partner UNEP in terms of building flood protection systems along vulnerable coastline, but also including nature-based solutions. So we're also looking to provide better solutions beyond just building more stuff and contributing to climate issues. At UNOPS, we've got the systems, tools and expertise to support our partners within MCR 2030 to improve the resilience of their infrastructure systems and stand ready to do so with practical action to holistically progress the 2030 agenda and beyond. And we look forward to working closely with everybody in the future. Thank you.
Thank you very much, and thank you for really raising the critical issue of resilient infrastructure, without which cities simply cannot be made resilient. So this is such an important part of the work moving forward. Really appreciate your comments on it. Our final speaker today is Ms. Amulya Saeez, who's the Secretary General of United Cities and Local Governments, speaking from Barcelona, Spain. Please.
Greetings, thank you very much, Loretta, and greetings, dear Mami and colleagues, so many old and new friends that I see gathered here today. It is a privilege for United Cities and Local Governments to join you in this launch and to join the new phase of making cities resilient as we walk towards 2030. You have said it before, many of the panelists have. This is a context of unprecedented challenges, a context where indeed cities, local and regional governments have shown the importance that they can have when helping communities face challenges, and above all, when providing service provision, even in the most difficult circumstances. But it is also a moment of great uncertainty, and a moment where our broad membership, over 250,000 local and regional governments around the world, are basically busy and worried about preserving the existing systems. This is what is keeping our membership busy right now. Realities might differ from one place to the other, but the concern is the same. This pandemic has galvanized how critical our role is indeed, and how important it will be to reconsider resilience, the very notion of it. What do we need to be resilient to, and what type of sustainable future are we looking at? How are our towns, cities, local and regional governments, our territories going to look like? What is the sustainable future like? What does it entail? What type of economy are we going to have in the future? This is what is going to be triggering some of the thinking that we feel will need to be developed within the context of MCR 2030. It will be essential to develop co-creation processes to determine what kind of transformation we need for that sustainable future. And we are delighted to be here with so many different partners that can bring different things to the table. From our perspective, United Cities and Local Governments would like to bring the learning capacity. One of our members expressed it before, and we are delighted to announce here that we are able to launch our learning module on resilience that we have worked on with many of the partners here, in particular UN Habitat and UNDRR. That we hope will inspire many to join this important movement and to put resilience higher up in their agendas. We would also like to offer research. We think the resilience of the future will need to emphasize how important inequalities and overcoming inequalities, the role that needs to play in future resilience plans. And we are working on our triennial report dedicated to paths towards addressing inequalities. I think it will be very useful for our work together. And finally, we would like to offer a space through our Cities Are Listening experience of a complementary new multilateral platform, I would say, that we will build with organized civil society, with all the organizations that are part of the Global Task Force, where we will be able to trigger conversations on the new pact that we need for the future a new system of cities that will include all these daring cities, but also the caring ones, and that will be underpinned by solidarity. A system where models based on inequalities do not have a space, a system where our relation with the planet will need to change and gain a different space also. The nature-based solutions will need to have a different space in the resilient debate. Finally, we think that governance will really need to be looked at. And it's a very important focus of our training module, but we hope that in the future we can help contribute to that within the context of the MCR 2030. The challenges that we are facing, but above all, the sacrifices that our communities are making now, and those that future generations will need to make, need to stand for something. And we hope that we all together in this partnership can really trigger the conversation towards the change we need. Count on United Cities and local governments to help walk in that direction. Thank you for giving us the floor.
Thank you very much for sharing the very concrete aspects that you will be bringing to this campaign. I really appreciate it, to this initiative rather. Well, this wraps up the second part of today's event, and I would like to offer a big thanks to all of the MCR 2030 core partners. You bring an extraordinary amount of knowledge, expertise, but really enthusiasm and a real spirit of partnership to MCR 2030. And what a great foundation for the final part of today's event, which is the official launch of MCR 2030, which will kick off with a video. Please.
I'm very pleased to announce the official launch of MCR 2030. And I would like to mention that the operationalization of MCR 2030 will start in January 2021 and it will last until 2030. I invite all of you, participants, cities, and partners to join MCR 2030. It is a collective effort that is required. Please visit the MCR 2030 website for more information. Get connected, get ready, sign up. And with that, I would like to thank all of our speakers today. You all gave excellent presentations and explanations of why this is so critical and so important for our future. And collectively, we will make a difference. Thank you all. And with this, I end today's official launch event. Goodbye.